Today we're talking with Gina Blanchard-Reed, who is running as a Republican in the 2nd District for State Senate. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you for having me.
Gina, can I start off by asking you, what is your motivation for running for office?
Okay, my motivation for running is that I believe that I have skills that I can bring to the State Senate. And those would be being able to have conversations with people that don't always agree and being able to come to a consensus. We have a lot of work that needs to be done in our state. And I'm planning on getting to work right away. I've been involved in grassroots politics for many decades, and now it's time for me to step up and serve in leadership.
What are some of your work experience and qualifications for this particular position?
Well, besides being involved in grassroots politics for years and networking, I worked in nonprofit work for a couple decades, including in the pro-life movement for about 10 years. I'm currently the executive director of the 2nd largest domestic violence shelter in the state. And I'm also serving as a fire commissioner here in Graham. We oversee a $28 million budget and serve about 70,000 residents. So I've gotten involved, not in the back scene, kind of working on campaigns and learning how to navigate those issues, but also serving as a fire commissioner. And I've been doing that since 2016.
Two controversial public policy topics for any candidate are pro-life or pro-choice and gun rights. Can you share your stand on those issues?
Happy to. So pro-life credentials, matter of fact, both of those questionnaires just came out, the Human Life of Washington. I do have the endorsement of Dan Kennedy, the former CEO of Human Life of Washington. I worked at CareNet Pregnancy and Family Services for close to 10 years. I've sat across many times with women facing the difficult choice of abortion. So I'm very sympathetic to the struggle, but I also believe in the dignity of human life from conception to natural death, and have been involved in political campaigns revolving the life issue. But more importantly, I understand the complexities of that issue and all the arguments that go into it. And what it really comes down to is offering women hope and resources to help them see the value of life. And I want to convey that because I know that people sometimes think that a pro-life person is not sympathetic or compassionate, and that has never been my stand. I've worked with many post-abortive women and understand the struggle, and I've heard the heartache many, many times of their choice. So that's why I was involved in that kind of work. As far as the NRA, and the Second Amendment, I am an NRA member. One of the questionnaires I was looking forward to the most filling out, and if you're running for office, you get a plethora of candidate surveys to fill out. And I kept bugging the NRA, when are you going to send it out? I'm confident that I'll get an A+ rating. Pam Roach just endorsed me this last week, and as a Republican, she's been extremely pro Second Amendment. So one of the things I bought my son when he graduated high school was a gun. I have my own license and carry as well, and that is a constitutional right that should not be infringed. So both those issues are definitely strong conservative values for myself.
Let's talk about some things that are happening across the state. So coronavirus obviously has caused a lot of economic stresses here in Washington state and across the nation. And some people are estimating that about $7 billion will be realized in a shortfall in our budget. Can you share, as a state senator, what you would do to help balance the budget and revitalize Washington businesses?
Well, I want to state up front that the answer is not to raise taxes. I think if we involve those that have been hit and hurt the most, business owners, and help involve them in the conversation, that's a good step. But we need to allow the free market to work. We need to generate revenue by getting the economy going again. I also have received the endorsement of the Labor Council, and I know that's an oddity among Republicans, but I think that they also want jobs. We need to work with business and labor to make that happen. So I think it's going to be a matter of lifting those taxes and allowing business to start thriving again. It's going to be hard. I think there are going to have to be, everybody's going to have to contribute in some way, and that may be some freezes and maybe some furloughs, that may be kind of putting on hold some of the projects that were recently passed. But we're all gonna feel it. But I think we really have to get behind our business community. They've been hit the hardest. My heart breaks right from the beginning. When I started my campaign, I started getting on the phone, which, as you know, campaign season started and then this all hit, and that's really been on people's minds. But just to see individual business owners hurt And I think they need to help us with the solutions.
So speaking of individual business owners, one of the things that has been happening is that Washington Labor and Industries has been fining business owners that did not adhere to the governor's restrictions. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's been so much overreach. I don't even know where to begin. It's almost been surreal to watch what's happened in our state, and I think we have to stand up against it. Fines. I mean, I'm thinking about my own hairdresser. She was, I was asking her if I can get a haircut, or when she was going to be open for business. I got a letter she told me she got a letter from the state that she would lose her license if she cut hair. And she's a single mom trying to support herself. Really, if we would have gone to the business community right from the beginning and said, look, these are some health concerns. This is what's happening. Help us. Let's work together so that you can still serve your clients and your customers in a way that's safe and healthy for everybody. I think we would have avoided all this. So I'm just appalled at the idea of finding businesses that are already hurting just for trying to survive and do what they actually are benefiting our community by being in business.
Another topic is schools. The Parents for Safe Schools recently gathered more than 266,000 signatures to put on the ballot Senate Bill 5395, which is the sex health education bill, or law, I should say, that was just passed this past legislative session. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Right. Just amazing amount of work, people that I know that were out there in the rain gathering signatures. And so while I wasn't able to be directly involved because of running the campaign, I knew a number of very close friends and supporters that were out there. And that's meaningful because it's parents. For many, I was a homeschooling mom for about 12 years. And those were issues that I was very concerned with. I think parents, and you'll see this on my website, parents do the best at parenting, the government doesn't. So now I work for a sexual assault and domestic violence center, and I know full well that exposing children to sexual content early lowers their barriers and makes them more vulnerable for sexual assault. So in my understanding from this bill, because I know people in my line of work that were supporting it early on, and it changed. It became something that from what it is now wasn't the beginning. I mean, there's a time when you can talk about consent in terms of your body autonomy, but to expose children to imagery and content that parents should be introducing on their own timetable, definitely agree with repealing that bill.
Another topic that is making headlines right now is the tragic death of George Floyd and the protests that have taken place afterwards. Lots of rioting and looting here in Washington state and across the nation. But in addition to that, calls to defund law enforcement. Can you share what you think about all of that?
Happy to. I just made a video that you can see on my Facebook page. It'll probably be on my website soon. It's actually one of my longer videos, about 7 minutes, because I really took time. I have a number of law enforcement supporters. And as you know, I'm running on a public safety platform with firefighters and law enforcement. I have great respect for them. And I right away got on the phone with those individuals that serve and want to know. I've learned a lot about the statistics involving the use of force, the Supreme Court case, Graham versus Connor. And, what happened with George Floyd, everybody would agree, including my law enforcement friends, that it was wrong. And does not represent the great men and women that serve our communities every day. That's one basic role of government, is public safety. And I'm completely against defunding. Actually, I think that there needs to be more funding. I think we need to have fund. If we're going to mandate that they're trained, we need to make sure that we're funding that. And serving as a fire commissioner, and they dovetail in terms of our first responders. They sacrifice their lives every day to serve us, and we need to make sure we have their back. So no death, and there were so many things that were wrong with the George Floyd and other cases that happened. It does not represent the vast majority of law enforcement. And the people that I know that I've seen over the last week, 3 individuals, you could just see how much it's weighing on them and their countenance and their face, and just how they're, it's been exhausting for them. So I think it's time that we get behind them fully.
Gina, if people out there want to help support your campaign, can you share how they can do that?
Certainly. So they can go to my website, and there's a link that they can sign up to volunteer. And that is Gina Blanchard-Reed with 2 E's.com. I have a Facebook page. They can interact with me. And of course, contact me by phone. That's all on my PDC So there, any way they want to contact me nowadays, you got to be flexible on how people reach out to you. So happy to have any help or clarify my positions. Always happy to have those conversations.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.